Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call a roll?
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Gendron?
Here.
Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yeah.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
7 present.
Okay, so this is a special meeting with, for the purpose of voting to approve a location for the renovated and/or newly constructed Lowell High School. And we have 2 speakers registered. If there's no objection, we'll take the speakers first. I would just remind the speakers who maybe have spoken before at city council meetings that for the school committee, the time limit is 3 minutes instead of 5. Go ahead.
Eric Nelson?
Mr. Mayor, members of the school committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Eric Nelson. I live at 208 Fairmount Street in the Belvedere section of Lowell. I am a proud graduate and a product of the Lowell Public School Systems. First at the Oakland, which became the LeBlanc School, then the Moody Junior High, and then the high school, class of 1988. Public education is incredibly important to my family. Both my parents are retired public school teachers. My dad was down the high school, and my mom served a life sentence in the 4th grade at the Riley School. I'm before you tonight, and as I've been before the City Council on a couple of occasions to speak in support of Colley Stadium as the new site. I was going to read a statement from former Assistant Superintendent Lang, who was going to speak but can't make it, has been called away on an emergency out at Chelmsford, and the email hasn't arrived yet. But what I would say, in lieu of Jay's statement, which was going to be in support of Colley and really in support of not jeopardizing the new school for the city, which is paramount. I want to say that I respect all the time and effort that the school committee puts in each and every week. Having spent time at a couple of city council meetings now, I know it's a tremendous amount of time, effort, and dedication, so I appreciate that. But with all due respect, similar to Mr. Gignac, I really have to question why we're here this evening. There's been a procedure in place for 18 months, which everyone has followed, and everyone thought they knew what the rules were. Yet here we are. So I have to ask myself the question, is it so this body can be heard? If that's the case, I would assert that this body's already been heard. Mr. Dakota, everyone knows where you stand. You were a downtown guy, and you've come around to the Colley side. Ms. Doherty, you've spoke before the City Council on a couple of occasions, eloquently stating your case for downtown. Mr. Gendron, you've probably put in as much time in this as anyone, with the exception of maybe the mayor, being on the school building committee. And you yourself at that vote said how difficult it was, yet you voted for downtown. So on other occasions, we've agreed on issues, and on this, we happen to disagree, but I do appreciate all the time that you've put in. Mr. Gignac, you said, you know, we were on a panel on the Michael Gallagher show when this whole thing kicked off, and you said, this is the procedure, it's not the school committee's role, it's the city council's vote, I'll leave it up to them. Yet here we are. Mr. Hoey, you're a dedicated member of this committee, and it's great to see you at events like Shed Park, and it was great to see you on opening day. Ms. Martin, similarly, you've spoke before the city council on a couple of occasions, eloquently supporting, I guess first, both you and Ms. Doherty, first asking the city council for more money for the school, which is great, and I hope you get it. But secondarily, in your support of downtown. We disagree, but I respect your opinion. But I would also assert that your voice has been heard. It was heard by the city council, and they took a difficult 5-4 vote in favor of Colley.
Eric, you're over 3.
Okay.
3.5.
So with that, I would say it's pretty clear we would not be here if the vote was 5-4 the other way. I ask that we respect the process, and I ask that we all come together and support the new high school in the best interest of the city going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Onase Omeni?
Hi, good evening. My name is Anase Omieni. I live at 20 Dundee Street in Lowell.
Before I begin, I just wanted to thank the council, Mayor Kennedy, Assistant Superintendent Janine Durkin, and Superintendent Kalfawi, who is in here with us today, for their support of Lowell High School students, specifically during this academic year. As you all know, this year, the class officers and myself worked to establish a student representative position, which will go on to exist next year and for years to come. And that position, I'm very grateful, will encourage students to get involved and stay involved in the democratic process. So that position enabled me to firsthand see how difficult it can be to do the right thing. Sometimes it has less to do with choosing to do what is right, more to do with making your way through a maze of bureaucratic red tape to ensure personal politics don't get in the way. It involves a lot of stepping back and looking at the big picture. For us, the big picture shows that 2016 has been a tumultuous year for education. Across the country, many students were stripped of education, a basic material right, because of where they came from. There have been a tremendous amount of state and national cuts that have made it difficult to discuss for districts across the country to provide an education that is accessible, equitable, and comprehensive and dynamic. The big picture was dismal. In looking at this picture, I watched as school committee members applied what they knew about Lowell, about our history, about our values, about our students, and our laws to ensure that this drab gray cloud would not be cast over Lowell students. I watched as members navigated the maze of red tape and came out victorious, some champions of Lowell students and Lowell values, working to ensure we all had access to an education and working even more to improve that education, to make it as dynamic and comprehensive and as equitable as possible. Tonight I am asking you to do the same thing. I won't rehash the whole argument. I'm sure it is clear to the committee that I am for the downtown location. The school committee members, there is some red tape you must navigate through tonight. A debate between city and state about whose vote should hold the most weight. Regardless, I would ask you to remember that your voices are your own. The City Council has very purposefully chosen whose interests they represent and considered a narrow strip of experiences. I have watched all year as you do your best to represent the interests of all Lowell students, not just the AP students or the student athletes or the overachievers, but all students. The student who is also a mom, the student with a learning disability, the students who have trouble thriving in traditional learning environments. Tonight, your vote is for all of those students, those I have mentioned and those who I have admitted. It is not for the City Council or for the peoples whose interests they represent. Though paperwork has been submitted and some votes considered, yours will not be disregarded. It will impact the MSBA's final decision. This debate has been a contentious one, and we don't all have the necessary information yet, and an appropriate amount of work hasn't been done to solicit the opinions of all of Lowell's communities, families, and enclaves. Very little has been done in the city to reach out to students. As underhanded influence in the council's decision continues to be illuminated, your decision could be a key factor in the MSBA's direction to put the Lowell High School decision on the ballot or to thoughtfully and deliberately review all options. Thank you. I apologize. I wasn't aware of the cutting down on the time. Thank you.
You came in right at 3 minutes, almost perfect. Good job. That concludes the speakers. Do we have a motion from the floor? Mr. Hoey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion. I move that the school committee go on record in support of moving the high school from downtown to the Colley site.
Is there a second to the motion? Second by Mr. Dakota. Discussion on the motion. And Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to start by saying that every one of us on this committee, when we ran for election during the campaign, we were asked where we wanted the high school. And at that time, everyone said downtown. I know many of us with I know for myself, it was, given once we have all the information, because we had the feasibility study to look at. And throughout that process, I listened with my heart and my ears, my eyes to every position, every person who spoke in favor of Colley and who spoke in favor of downtown, looking for a compelling reason not to keep our high school downtown at the core of the city where the students can access those services. And I can tell you, as more and more information came across, it was clear there wasn't a compelling reason. Between the millions of dollars in additional costs, the concerns about the renovation, we can make a beautiful addition and renovation. I've seen it done. My own home was built in 1893. It's a beautiful home. And with option 3, we can provide for the students who are going to school during the renovation process. So I feel that I know the city council voted 5-4, and I don't want to seem like an obstructionist, but I think that our role as elected members of the school board is to provide for the best education of our children, to protect those interests. And that's why we stand up before the city council and ask for additional resources. And that's why I stood up at the city council meetings and asked the council to vote in the best interests of our students and the future of our city. And that's why we deserve to be here now voting on this issue, because it is our responsibility as elected members of the school committee. So I will not be voting in support of the move to Collie. I think that there has not been compelling information that would make that move a wise one for our students or our city.
Thank you. Any further discussion, Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I've said it publicly over the past few days. I don't think this meeting is the best use of our time or authority as a school committee. You know, this process started long ago, and since the letter of interest was submitted in 2014, this body and the prior school committees were under the impression that the selection of the site lied with the city council, and that our responsibility was to approve and develop with our administration an educational program, which is what we did. Since approving that program in January, we've been left out of the loop. The city council has had numerous public forums. They've had discussions with the OPMs, with the architects. We haven't since that educational plan. We're expected to vote on an option tonight, and this is what we were given, a piece of paper. Each city councilor was given hundreds and thousands of documents on each location, and we simply were not privy to that information. You know, I think there's a process in place, and throughout the process, I've stayed neutral because I believe, as a school committee member, my job is to make sure the project moves forward and to make sure we do what is best for the children. And I will tell you that since the very beginning, I was hoping that the OPM and architects would bring forward a downtown option that would work and that would not disrupt the children. Unfortunately, Skanska and Perkins Eastman failed in that regard, in my opinion. I know the superintendent was requesting an option, and he never received that response. So I think it's in the best interest of this body not to even have a vote. So I will be abstaining. However, I think if we were to take this vote a few weeks ago, after being informed and being able to ask Skanska and Perkins Eastman questions and receiving all that information, we could have made a recommendation as a body to the city council. However, I don't think we're in the position to do so. I think the entire process has been flawed, and I don't think it would be responsible for us to take a position this evening. I thank you. I highly respect you, Mr. Mayor, and your position, but I can't, as a member of the school committee, support any action that will put this project in jeopardy. These kids need a new high school, and I think what is in order is a special meeting to discuss what we're going to do for the kids that are in that building now. You know, whether the high school goes to Collie or downtown, fixes need to be made today, tomorrow, and that's something that we should be discussing. How are we going to get through this process? We can't put it off any longer. You know, the conditions at Lowell High School right now are unacceptable. Whether we get a new one or we renovate, right now, today, they're unacceptable. And I think this body should work with the city council to put together a comprehensive action plan to address those needs. And I think, you know, I know each and every one of my colleagues is here for the best interests of the children, and I think that is where we should be putting our efforts, is fixing what we have until we have a new school. And I thank my colleagues for listening to me, and I thank the speakers for being here and the members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gignac. Any, Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Citizens of Lowell, Mayor Kennedy, and my fellow school committee members, I join you here today in an effort to move the process of investing in a new school forward, if only by a small margin, because we are worth the effort. We are the parents, the grandparents, the kids, and the taxpayers who support a downtown location, and we are worth the effort. We are the parents, the grandparents, the kids, and the taxpayers who support the Collie location, and we are worth the effort. We all share in compassion and stewardship for the city of Lowell with its current and future students, and we are worth the effort of moving this process forward. Mayor Kennedy has called this special meeting today because he is doing everything in his power to advance the direction he feels is right for his city and his neighborhood. His decision was inspired by advice from a candidate for this very committee who pointed out inconsistencies or loopholes that could potentially keep the prospects of a downtown location alive. Now, there are those of you who have decried this maneuver as desperate, petty, and manipulative. Some are calling for a removal, a vote of no confidence. These voices are wrong. If I was still a supporter of the downtown option, I'd be proud of Mayor Kennedy for his bravery and his leadership. Why should that pride change to derision simply because I feel Collie is the better option? I respect you, Mr. Mayor, and I respectfully disagree with your position. Understand that with issues of as divisive as this one, with as much as is at stake that this is the process, one side advances, the other side strategizes to rally. We supporters of the Collie option mustn't fear this proceeding today, nor should we fear the non-binding vote we will take. I believe the law favors the jurisdiction of the City Council over the school committee in this matter. Time will tell. In the meantime, I am eager to reaffirm my support for the Collie location. Having graduated from, taught at, for nearly 20 years and formerly been in favor of the downtown location, Lowell High School in downtown holds a special place in my heart. However, after listening, learning, and carefully considering all of the pros and cons of the various options, I was led to the conclusion that the Collie location best meets the educational and experiential needs both for the transitional students during construction as well as future generations of students. I'm unafraid to express this belief, and I am unafraid to vote on record in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dakota. Any further discussion? Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You know, having this opportunity to be able to discuss what has been a dramatic, let's say, process over the last 18 months, just a few kind of thoughts that I know we're all considering here on the committee, and I think overall our community is really considering. You know, from the very beginning, one of the first things I was really struck by in this whole process was the idea that as this division happened, as these passionate opinions were coming to the fore, the reality is that on both sides of this, the fight was about where we were going to put a brand new high school. And what I found heartening from the very beginning is that it was never a fight about if. It was never a fight about if we needed a new high school, if we needed new infrastructure to support it. The community as a whole very strongly spoke in saying that, yes, we needed to make this investment. You know, the question obviously came down to where. I think another lesson for myself as I went through this and having gone through maybe never anything quite this, again, dramatic, but, you know, in my time on the school committee, a lesson I learned, thankfully, early on was that it is absolutely possible for two people, two logical, reasonable, ethical people to be presented with the exact same information and yet still come to different conclusions. It's not a question of one side being, you know, morally superior or otherwise. We've all been presented with a great deal of information, and for all of us, whether we're sitting here on the school committee, on the council, or being part of the groups that have grown up as part of this, we're all bringing our own experience and our own priorities to making this decision. Neither side has cornered the market on ethical decision-making. I think across the board, we have seen sincere, genuine efforts to do what's best for our students and for our community as a whole. As Mr. Nelson mentioned, yes, I have stated that I have been in support of the downtown option. I remain in favor of that option. And there are, again, reasons from my own personal experience, also reasons from my professional experience. As a member of the nonprofit community here in Lowell, I highly value having that central location where all of the different organizations, whether it's the university and the community college, whether it's community teamwork, Girls Inc., all the other different organizations that all are in this central area, I think that's important. And I've valued it both as a school committee member and as a member of that nonprofit community. I also think that there are a number of unknowns on both sides, in both sides of this decision. We all recognize that renovations bring with them situations that you really can't anticipate. I think we also are all looking at what the reality is of the infrastructure improvements that would need to happen at a Colley site. So I think both sides still have a great deal of information that we're still in the process of developing. I think as I came into the meeting tonight, if nothing else, I think it's important to note that we did understand the process in a certain way from the very beginning, but I don't think it's appropriate when presented with new information to ignore it. So I do think that it makes sense for us to investigate and find out exactly what the status of the process is and for us to be able to have the most up-to-date information. I will clearly say I am not an attorney. I do not play one on TV. I am not the one who can answer this question. So I appreciate that we're doing the appropriate investigations to find out exactly what the law instructs us to do. So I think that, when there is a meeting of the school committee called, I will come to that meeting, as I have tonight, and I will come prepared to vote on what's in front of me. As I say, I have gone through this process like our entire community has, looked at the information. I feel that my support for the downtown option remains my conviction in this area. So I appreciate so many people being involved in this. I welcome that involvement, and I recognize, I think that it's not over tonight. This is going to be continuing, I think, for a little while yet as we pull in some additional information, but that I will not be supporting the vote to move to Colley. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. General.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as was pointed out, I've been involved in this process as long as anybody as a member of the school building committee, and I feel I've looked at all of the information and followed that process very closely. And I will agree that I wasn't aware of the potential for the school committee to get involved at this point. However, there does seem to be a reasonable legal reason why maybe that is so. I think that it's appropriate for us to get involved and take a stand. We are the board that's elected by the people to oversee the schools. Why would we not take a stand at this point and give our opinion? I mean, the Board of Health gave an opinion on this. Why wouldn't the school committee give an opinion on it? And I agree with Ms. Martin in what she said, that I am heartened by the fact that the debate is about where should the school go and not should we do a school. I think that there's sufficient support all across the city for the fact that we need a new high school. And people are ready and willing to invest in that because we want to invest in the future of our students. It's no secret that I've been supporter of the downtown location, and I remain a supporter of the downtown location. I feel the number one issue for me is the fact that it's a central location. If we're going to have one high school in the city of Lowell, and remember, almost all cities the size of Lowell have at least 2 high schools. Historically, we've had 1, and we've decided to go forward with 1. And we did it. We actually had this discussion on the school building committee about the potential of breaking it up. We did it because we felt 1 high school unifies the city more than 2 would. Kind of ironic that this process has led us to the point where we're so divided. But nonetheless, if we're going to have 1 high school, I feel it has to be centrally located. It's the most fair and equitable location for all residents of the city and all communities in the city. It's the most efficient. It allows us to leverage the LRTA bus lines. Why would we want to encounter the expense and the traffic and the environmental impact of putting more buses on the road in the morning and in the afternoon when we don't have to? We can leverage the LRTA. It's right between UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College. It allows us to leverage those institutions and run programs with them, which we do on a regular basis. I believe that it's also right in the middle of our national park. How more uniquely Lowell can you get? We will have a 21st century high school in a historic building right in the middle of our national park. This would be a uniquely Lowell high school and provide a very unique high school experience. I also have an issue with losing the fields at Colley. I think we have a tremendous athletic facility there that can be used by our students and the community. I think we jeopardize that by taking up that space and spreading those fields across the city. And then, of course, the cost. We don't have to go into the details of the cost. I want to point one thing out, though. There's been talk about disruption of the students while the construction goes on in a high school downtown. And there's no doubt that there'll be inconvenience and disruption. However, I can tell you, I was there when we interviewed and hired the architect, that Perkins Eastman, the architect on this job. And the reason they were selected was twofold. One, they had a history of coming in within budget, and they touted that. And two, they have a history of building high schools in phased developments, where you have a school that's still running on the site where you're building a new high school. They have experience with this. They know what they're doing. They're experts at it. They're taking precautions on top of precautions to make sure we can provide a quality education to our students while the construction goes on. Not only that, the fastest way to get our students in the current high school into a new facility is downtown, because that brand new, spanking new field house will be available to them within a year and a half. So if you're a sophomore in high school now, you're going to get the benefit of that new field house, because it'll be ready first and it'll be populated first. And if anybody who's been down there where we've had to cancel sporting events because the roof is leaking, you get a full stadium and you have to call off the volleyball match because the roof is leaking, it's embarrassing. That won't happen anymore, and that's the fastest path to that. So I could go on. There are a number of reasons, but I feel like it is appropriate for us to take a stand. I feel like it is appropriate for us to take a vote. I don't think it jeopardizes the new high school. You think the MSBA hasn't seen conflict in communities before? You don't think they might? This is the biggest project they've ever done. You don't think they're expecting a little conflict? They're not going to say, oh, you're not in line, we're taking our money away. I think they want us to go through this process and figure out what we can live with. So to that effect, I am going to be supporting the downtown site here tonight. But I would like to say right now, and send this out to the city council, that I think if you want to heal this community, you want to bring this community together, what you should do is put this on the ballot and let the people vote. I think the city council should reconsider the petition that was brought before them the other night and put this on the ballot. The only way the city's going to heal is if we give the decision to the people. If we allow, we have a divided school committee, we had a divided school building committee, we have a divided city council. There is no obvious answer here. But if we give the vote to the people, somebody's going to be disappointed, but at least they'll be disappointed at the will of the people and not a few people in the community. That would be my plea to the city council, regardless of what happens here tonight, that they reconsider this, put it on the ballot, truly heal this community, and let the people choose. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Hoey.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't really even prepare what I wanted to say tonight. I said I'm not going to put it on paper. I'm going to say it from the top of my head, and hopefully I don't make any mistakes. But the first time I ever spoke out about where I wanted the high school was on WCAP. I said, I think I was on there with the curmudgeon. And I remember saying I'm for option 3 downtown. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, a group formed called the Colley Group. And they came out, and I know by the end of the night, they're not going to think I believe this, but from my heart, that group made a movement that helped this city more than they'll ever know. But eventually, over the weeks, when I was on my show, my favorite show, City Life, I do go on that show and I say to them, eventually I started to come around, and I'm saying, boy, I'm really on the fence on this, because that's how good of a job the Colley people did. But as I continue, I have to work hard to get elected, I don't raise a lot of money sometimes, so I knock a lot of doors and I talk to a lot of people. And the more I talk to people, the thing I hear the most is, we can't afford it. So then I go home and I think, okay, do I think about the taxpayers or do I think about the children? And I fall for children every time. I flipped on bilingual education 22 years ago, and it was a big vote I had to take, and I took a lot of static for it. But right now, I just think there's a third group that no one's counting, and that's the group that I think I'm in right now. I don't believe that we can afford to spend about $400 million when I look at the other 15,000 kids, well, let me say 13,000 kids, because the high school will hold about 3,200 to 3,500. I had to look at those other kids, the 13,000, and I remember coming into this seat saying, the maintenance of effort, that's what I want to hit. And I hit it hard, and I'm still going to tell you now. We rent off the city of Lowell. People don't understand that on the streets when I knock on a door or shake somebody's hand. They don't even realize we're tenants. And that's my point here. We have a lot of things that need to be fixed, and I'm not sure if we can afford it if we spend $400 million. So with that said, all I wanted to do after I read everything, I never missed a school committee meeting in 2 terms that I've been on here. I work extra hard. I talk to professionals about education, about speech, anything. I go to the pros. And I think I do a pretty good job when I go to vote for something. But with all that said, I read over everything, and I think after seeing that 9-9 vote that I sat here and watched one day, I said to myself, boy, if those people have a vote, and I read the charter, the old charter, I haven't seen anything that amended that charter, I think I have a vote. And that's why I came here to vote tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. If there's no further discussion, I would just ask Mr. Hoey to read the motion one more time, just so that everybody's clear.
I move that the school committee go on record in support of moving the high school from downtown to the Colley site.
Okay, so a yes means move the high school to Collie, and a no means keep it downtown.
Yep. Yes.
Roll call?
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
No.
Mr. Gendron?
No.
Mr. Gignac?
Abstain.
Mr. Hoey?
No.
Mayor Kennedy?
No.
Ms. Martin?
No.
1 yea, 5 nays, 1 abstain, motion fails.
So is there any other motion that anybody wants to make? Mr. Gendron?
No.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, is anybody interested in making a motion asking that the city council consider doing a referendum?
Sure. Now that you mention it. I will move that the city council reconsider a referendum on the ballot for this question.
Do we have a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call?
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
If there's no further business, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Gendron, second by Ms. Doherty. All in favor, all opposed?